This is a dev update and demo of the latest features of PocketRN. Specifically, what we're going to cover today is the addition of account types, providers, and our incorporation of the beta test feedback. It's been a long time since we've last done a dev update and last done a demo of the entire application. So we are also going to go through all the nooks and crannies of the application. So it might be a little lengthy. We're also recording this off script. It's very casual. It's live. So a lot of the things in the demo may not be very tight, and just be understanding as we go through it. Finally, the changes have just been pushed to production, and because we're running on Google Cloud Platform over Cloud Functions, there is an idea of slow start on the functionality. And so some of the loading times on the application may seem long, and those go away once the app is actually used regularly by standard customers. So let's dive into it. So first, what we're going to do is I'm going to introduce what these changes are, the two biggest being the account and the ability to change what your active account is, the ability to add and manage providers within PocketRN, and then we're going to dive into an actual demo, and then I will discuss what future updates you can expect from PocketRN in the near future. So to understand accounts and providers and why this update was important to PocketRN, it's kind of important to understand who our constituents are and how we best serve them. So imagine that you are a clinic and you have nurses and patients and admins of that clinic. You want to make sure that when your nurses are meeting with their patients on PocketRN, that say your clinic A and what you do is wound care, you want to make sure that all your patients are seeing only the nurses within your clinic scope. They're not seeing nurses generally throughout PocketRN. They're not seeing another clinic's nurses. They're seeing your clinic's nurses because it's your discharged patient. And on the other hand, as a patient, you want to make sure that the nurses that you see are also in that clinic as well. And then as a nurse, if you're working for Clinic A, you want to make sure that you're only seeing patients for Clinic A. You don't want to see patients for Clinic B and C unless you also work for that clinic, in which case, great, you can see patients in any of the clinics. So what we did is we added the capability for our users in order to have providers that they're a part of and different account types that they're a part of as well. So as an example, we have Alice and we have Bob. And Alice is a nurse, and she works at the charcoal clinic and the bluish gray clinic, but she's also a patient at the charcoal clinic. And so you can see that what she has is she essentially has three different accounts on PocketRN, is the easiest way to think about it. She has a patient and a nurse account for charcoal clinic, and she has a nurse account for the gray clinic. And then we have Bob. And Bob is an employee of PocketRN. In fact, he's a technician, and so he has admin capabilities, which we'll see in the demo. But he's also a patient for gray and brown clinic. And you can see that at Gray Clinic, there's also Alice, who is a nurse. And so if Bob was to go on PocketRN and select that he wants to meet with nurses from Gray Clinic, he can meet with Alice, specifically for that clinic. If he tried to meet with Alice on the Brown Clinic, she's not available there at all. And because he's not available in the Charcoal Clinic, Alice can't meet with Bob. So in this situation, we essentially have provided the ability to have scoped access for all of our constituents, and for a constituent to have multiple accounts and the management of those accounts. So let's dive into a demo to kind of show off this feature set. So we're going to log into that technician account. And right now, PocketRN had to be completely reset in order to manage this. And so it's 100% fresh. This is the only account that exists on PocketRN. So we need to set up a few other things as well. First, we need a provider. We need one of those clinics. So let's go to Manage Providers. And there's not going to be any available at the moment because we don't have any. But we're going to create a provider. We need to give it an ID and we need to give it a name. The name is what the users see. The ID is what the system sees. And in this case, we need the beta test provider so that we can start inviting beta test members to demo our product on their time. So I'm going to do beta test. And the provider name is just going to be beta testers. Now I can go back and I can modify that name whenever I want, so we can change it. The provider ID itself is static. Once you define it, it's set, but you can most certainly define as many providers as you want. So if you have a clinic and you have multiple different scenarios you want, like a test scenario versus a real one, you can do that. Okay, so we've added this provider. And what we want to do now is add the first users to that provider. So let's go invite our first user. What I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to invite myself first, and I'll just invite myself as a patient. So from the provider list, we have PocketRN Network, which is the general network of PocketRN. We don't currently support nurses or patients being on the general PocketRN network. Only technicians are able to be on the PocketRN network. So I'm going to choose beta testers as a patient, and then my email. And I'll invite myself. And I'll show you what the invitation looks like when we invite someone else here in a second. But I wanted to show you this experience first of what it means to be a user who has multiple accounts. So I'm going to go over to Profile real quick. I was going to say I have a pending invitation. I'll click on it. And there it is. I have my invitation to join as a patient under beta testers. I'm going to approve that. And once it's approved, I will now be able to switch my account out for being a technician, which is what I am right now, to being that beta test patient, which would allow me to meet with nurses under that beta testers provider network. So this is going to reload my account as a beta tester. But I'll get back to that in a minute. For now, I'm just going to go back to being a technician on the network. Notice how much quicker it is when I switch back and forth between them. That's that slow start, by the way. So anytime I make a call that has never been made before on the system because we just flushed it, it's going to take a little bit. But after that, you can expect a much faster performance from our application in general. So once we actually get customers bootstrapped on this, it's going to run just fine. Anyway, let me go and invite someone else. I'm going to invite a nurse on this beta testers platform. And I'm going to do contact. This is just a Yahoo email that I have, specifically set up to help test PocketRN. So I'll invite them. Perfect. I'll also invite that same person as a patient on the beta test one, just so you can see what it's like when you both have a nurse and a patient invitation. All right, while that's loading, I'm gonna go over to that email. And in my inbox, I should have, thank you Walmart, I should have two invitations. The first one should be to join as a nurse. And Richard Jones, that's what I name myself on this account, has invited me to join as a nurse, and I can choose to log in as a nurse for that account. I've also been invited as a patient. Normally, most people won't be given two invitations because normally people are either a patient or a nurse, but you can see that it sends out the invitation pretty much the exact same whether you're a patient or a nurse. So what I'm going to do is here on the left, I'm just looking at this on mobile view. Because we are a marketplace app where we're meeting patients and nurses together, sometimes we need to view two applications at the same time. So over here, I'm going to sign in with email, and I'm going to choose my Yahoo account. Now, I don't have an account set up yet with PocketRN for this, so I'm just going to put in my information and a password. And then it sent me a verification email, which once again, if I come back, all right, and there's the email. So if I click on it, and then I can click on the link itself to authenticate. And it says, great, you've been verified. You can now sign into your account. And I'm going to close that one out because I'm already signed in over here, and it's saying you're using it on multiple accounts, which it's confused by. And I'll just refresh this one over here instead. And we can see that we have the invite for being the nurse and for one for being the patient. So I'm just going to go up and I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to select the nurse as my invite. I'll keep my information attached with it and just say register. So this will activate my account as a nurse. And once it's done, I will also be able to enter my phone information down here. So I can say send code. And then eventually it will send me a code. And now my phone is attached to my account, which is useful. I won't show it here, but essentially you can, if you have requested a meeting with either a nurse or a patient, it will let you know when that meeting has been accepted. So we can finish, and now here is my my portal as a nurse. Fully registered, ready to go. There's a couple things I need to do before I begin my journey using PocketRN. One of them is I need to complete all the tutorial videos, which I can do just by clicking here, go into each one. There's a little YouTube video. Each of them kind of helps you understand how to use Zoom, how to just navigate the product, how to get better at certain things. So I can use Zoom on different types of systems and devices, but then I can just finish all of those tutorials and I'm done. And then I just need to select a service. And I go here and there are no services. And that's because each provider has their own list of services that they can provide. So if I go back here to the technician, I can click back and I can click manage providers, which will pull back up the list of my beta testers provider network. Click view provider, manage services, and I can say, for the beta test, they only need one thing, and that's this ability to do demo calls. So I'm going to save it. Now, if I go back here, after this is done being saved, I should be able to go to manage. One more time. There it is. Okay. So I can go now as a nurse, I can choose to accept patients for a demo call. And again, just from the technician side, there's a lot of different options that providers can choose. And we can add onto these as much as we want. These are just an example list. But demo call right now is sufficient for this beta testers provider specifically. Okay, so me as a nurse, I'm capable to now start meeting with patients, which I could do just by clicking on this button. And it's going to enter me into the queue to look for patients. But there's not going to be any available because, well, no patients have requested help yet. But as a nurse, I can also go around and do other things on the application, such as review my tutorial videos or contact support. If I click contact support, I can go in and say, I need help with, I'm going to report a bug, and provide some details. Big bug on my keyboard. Kill with fire. And then I can send it. These reports are sent to our technicians via a Slack message. And so we get it. Yeah, we got your report. We'll respond back to you as soon as we can. And so I can finish and close this. So if I go and look on Slack, I can see that a nurse has just reported the bug, and we don't in Slack state what the issue was that they reported, because it could contain sensitive information. But a technician who has access to that account can say, well, I'm going to grab that support ID, come back in here, be able to say view support tickets, put in the support ticket ID, and then I can actually pull down what the user sent and the message type. As the user, I'm also going to get an email that is essentially a copy of the issue that I reported. And the idea would be the technician or the support team from PocketRN would respond via email with their concern and trying to address it. So that's if you contact support. We also specify that if you're going to ask a medical question, that we don't help address those through our support team, that you have to do that through the actual main page. You can also see that we're continuing to be in queue, even though we're navigating to different parts of the app, and that's intentional. Finally, you can go to your profile, and if you recall, we invited this user as both to be a nurse and a patient, and I can see that I chose the nurse, but I can go back in my profile and say, I actually want to also approve being that patient, which I can do now. I could also edit my basic contact information. So if I decide, actually, I don't go by Ryan, I go by Rye Guy, then I can go ahead and change that information. I could also update my phone number, which I won't do because I don't have multiple phone numbers. And I can choose whether or not I'm going to receive SMS notifications. I can also opt out by directly saying unsubscribe or opt out on the text message when I get it, as per standard regulation. And here I can also log out if I want it to be a different user or just get out of the system. All right, but we'll just leave this nurse here in the queue. And we'll go back over to our technician portal. And if you can recall, as a technician, I invited myself as a patient. And I could go in and start meeting with this nurse. But I want to show a few other things as well before I do that. So one of them, I got to cancel out this in order to show it, which is that if I go down here as a technician, I should be able to pull certain statistics from the app. And one of them is whether or not meetings were canceled, which, this nurse just canceled the meeting. And so I have some stats about the cancellation of that meeting. And this is just a CSV file. It's all obfuscated without any actual relevant information relating back to this nurse, but it gives some relevant operational data. And once there's other things going on, like meetings that are occurring, then those will also show up here. If I go jump back in the queue as a nurse, the other thing that I can do from the technician portal is I can see who's in the queue. And so I can see that once this finished loading, that there is a nurse in the queue, and here's some obfuscated information about them, but then I can open it to pull in their real information, which just takes a little bit to load. And I can see that Ryan Saunders is in the queue, and he's in the queue for under the provider network of beta test. And he's specifically in the queue providing help for demo calls. He hasn't blocked any users. And this is really useful if you have multiple people in the queue and someone reports like, I can't match with a nurse, what's going on? Or a nurse is like, I'm not matching with any patients, what's going on? A technician can come here and kind of assess like, well, let's see what's actually happening in the queue and why you're not matching with anyone. So that's that capability. But yeah, let's actually jump into a meeting, which is probably the most core aspect of Pocket RN. So I'm this user now. I also have to complete tutorial videos, and they're specific to a patient. So for example, I have one to meet with a nurse. So I'm going to get started as a patient, meeting with a nurse. Great. Zoom's already installed, and I'm done. Now, as a patient, all I need to do is select what service I want help with. And because this provider network only has one option, which is the demo call, that's the one that I'll choose. And I can start finding a nurse. Now, you can immediately see that this nurse who was waiting this whole time for a patient to show up, and I finally did. And we can see we're going to meet with Ricky. And I can decline this patient. If I decline it, then I will be put back in the queue. Notice that the patient was not aware of the match during this time at all. The patient is only aware of a match if a nurse accepts it. So the nurse has all the power. But this nurse will not meet with this patient again because they declined that patient. Now, if you leave the queue as a nurse and then you go back to meet with patients, then you can meet with those patients again. So yet again, here's the same patient because I'm the only nurse on this platform. If there was other nurses or other patients, the priority of the queue would handle that. But in this case, we're the only two. It will also automatically decline after 5 minutes, whether or not I even see this page. And then if I'm not looking at this page, I will get a text notification letting me know as a nurse that there is a patient waiting for you to accept or decline and that you have 5 minutes. But if I accept it, then it's going to generate a Zoom link for me and that patient. And you can see the link details down here with the capability also to jump into the Zoom, which I won't do, and to finish the meeting. So when ready, you can click Finish Meeting. Now, as a nurse, if you click Finish Meeting and it's only been a couple minutes, it will kind of let you know that you probably should wait for the patient. But if you need to, you can remind the patient. And if I click Remind Patient, this will actually send out a text notification to the patient, like no matter what. But let's just say we finished the meeting. So as a nurse, yeah, we met, we talked, it was great. I was able to help out that patient. You're presented with the ability to provide feedback, which obviously it was an amazing experience. And you can also report an issue if you want. So I could designate that, it was an amazing issue, but the patient called me something mean. And so you want to flag the participant as inappropriate, and I'm going to send that. This will be sent to our, it is the exact same as sending a support ticket. So our Slack will get it, you'll get an email notification, and we'll follow up with you. If you really don't want to meet with that user again, you can just block them as well. And in this case, they will never meet with each other again. There is really no way to unblock a user, and so we want to make sure users are using it sparingly. But yeah, if you really need to, you can make sure you never queue with that user again. And both the nurse and the patient can do that from their end. And then when the nurse is done, they click finish and they say, yep, I'm good. I close out the meeting and I'll be put back in the main page so I can meet with yet another patient if I'm ready for that. As the patient, you can see that the nurse has left the meeting. Pocket RN's aware that they're done with the meeting, so there's nothing for me to do. The Zoom information's gone at this point, so I'll finish the meeting. And then I can also provide feedback, and it was okay. And like I said, I can also report just the same kind of information, or I can just finish and close out the meeting. That is the extent of Pocket RN at this point in time. Hopefully that demo, although being very thorough, gives you a good idea of what its capabilities are. So what's next for Pocket RN? Our feature that we're currently working on is in-app messaging, which is the capability for nurses and patients to directly communicate in the app through essentially texting each other in a secured and HIPAA-compliant way. It'll also present a lot of other opportunities as well. For example, notification of when you as a nurse had a meeting that was auto-declined because you didn't show up and accept or decline it within 5 minutes. So we can show kind of notifications. We can also help guide the user through essentially a chatbot, which allows them to get help without having to talk to individuals. And so if they're like, I don't know why I can't figure out how to start a meeting. Well, the chatbot will likely tell you, hey, you need to finish tutorials first, or you need to go and accept what services you want to offer as a nurse. The other thing is we want to take a lot of the capabilities that the technician can do right now, which is always a Pocket RN employee, and give that to the providers themselves. And so essentially a provider admin account where they can also add their own users. And they could also check out who's in their queue and other dashboarding and reporting statistics as well. And then finally, we want to provide capabilities for nurses to be able to provide after visit summary notes so that they can be given to other nurses during that accept or decline meeting screen. So the nurse knows what to prepare for before meeting with the user. And also for the patient to be able to provide medical details regarding why they're calling. So either images or a description, and that could last from service to service, or it could be specific to this particular request. Potentially even integration with an EMR, although we're not quite certain that's a necessity at this point where we're at with piloting with different clinics. So that's it for this dev update. I hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to providing another one for you in the future.